All right, it's now time for raising funds for World Domination, day number 182. So, time for the daily update. Once again, on October 14th, the tenant board gave an order to reject the outstanding N13 applications, so I can stay in the apartment. And LTB confirmed they closed my case. But on October 17th, I learned that they may try to appeal the ruling, but I have had no official communication on that. And then on the second front, I've been working on getting the Shopify store up and running to get some more sales, get some more revenue. There's not a lot in updates on that, other than so I did my second appeal. I did a pretty good overhaul, I think, on making sure all my policies match and stuff like that. And I appealed a couple days ago, and they within a day they rejected it again. So I'm only allowed one more appeal. And once again, this is for getting the whole reason I use Shopify is to get the links, purchase links, to show up under YouTube videos, because that can generate way more click-throughs. And I made 7 physical sales so far, all of which have been shipped. Oh yeah, and the other note was Canada Post is way more expensive now, so I may even have to increase my prices again. And when I talked to the postal worker, and they said that so they're not on strike today, but they have some like tentative agreement, and they may actually go on strike again in November. And we've also got 2 new block dedications. They're getting expensive now, $32 each. Orthoplex 64, how's it going? Go RI Devs says, hi Robert, how's it going? And the other thing I worked on today was the next marketing video. So recording, we're at, I'm going to say 40%, and editing, I say 20%. So it's progressing. And once again, we're going to continue working on the terminal block mining game during the stream, with the goal of getting toward the next release version. So yesterday, I think I fixed some of the annoying bugs with respect to when the highlighted list item is out of bounds. I think we need to expand the brand to make music with code. My brand, or make music with code? I don't know, that's not really my thing. There's a bunch of other people who do that better than I do. Okay, that's looking good. What music do you prefer? I don't know. I listen to a lot of different music. A lot of stuff that comes up in YouTube recommendations. The funk remixes of stuff. The slow and reverb version. I think someone brought that up the other day. All right, let's test something. What's he programming? I am currently programming a terminal-based video game. Let's make sure that works. Like NetHack, I've had a few people mention that. I think I've Googled that a couple times, but I'm not familiar enough with NetHack to say. I'll demo it in a second here. All right, so here's the game. You can wander around an infinite procedurally generated universe. You spam the M key to mine blocks, and it's 3D, so you can go down, go up. And there's some ore over there. And it runs purely on the terminal, and the graphics are all emoji characters. And it also has it's got like a mode for pure ASCII. So if you want to run it in the console, like a restricted graphics mode, TTY. All right, I got a bug over here. Does the terminal allow you to make 3D graphics, or would you need to use libraries for that? Sounds like a nightmare. So the terminal, like as a device, that's it depends what like graphics mode you're running it in. So like you can obviously just make a 3D. You can use like OpenGL and stuff to do like 3D graphics. Now, would it be possible? Not all terminals support this, but there's some terminals that support sixels, where you can draw arbitrary like images. And if you're running a terminal that supports sixels, it would be possible to have, say, one of these frames actually have like a just arbitrary 3D graphics. I mean, it'd be kind of limited, but you can display like just arbitrary images of. You can take the arbitrary bitmap or something and display that. You just have to like set the pixels to be on or off and stuff. But that might have performance problems. I don't know. It'll be funny if you get that 3D client for player gravity. Yeah, I'm pleased to see that someone was able to vibe code, that the model was simple enough that they could vibe code a client. At first I thought they meant they vibe coded the client like on top of this, on top of the existing code, because there's already like a thing to manage what chunks are loaded and unloaded from memory. But yeah, I mentioned it'd be interesting to see the code, but I'll probably have to add like so my license for this does not allow like other people redistributing the code. I might have to make I might make an exemption for like if you want to clone it and add something of your own, but you have to put like a disclaimer in the repo that like specifies like this is an unofficial thing. Basically, the main thing I'm concerned about is people doing like a fork and then putting like malware in it or something, and then some random person says like, "Hey, I downloaded your game and got malware." I'm like, "Where did you download it?" I'm like, "I downloaded it from this random URL." I'm like, "Yep, that's totally not associated with me. Some random person from Russia." Let's see. Can also display bitmaps somewhat well with 2x4 Braille. Oh, really? Interesting. I'll have to look into that. That's not what I expected. Are you familiar with Dwarf Fortress? Quite a colossal 3D text game with crazy detailed interactions. Yeah, I have. I've never played it, but I watched a couple like documentaries on it and stuff. In fact, that was one of the things that when I saw that, it was like, maybe there could be a commercially viable pathway for something like what I'm working on. Jay says, "Yo, how's it going?" So my initialization is not working. Maybe this is not correct. Can we play your game soon? You can play it right now, actually. There's a link down in the description to the GitHub repo. Opinions on Rust. You know what? I haven't heard people talk much. People always used to ask me about Rust, but not as much anymore. Rust. The language seems very complicated. I've never had a need to learn it. I think it maybe has a niche case. When you look at how many unnecessary bugs there are in C, like writing C for a desktop application in this day and age, I don't think makes sense. C only makes sense if it's maybe like lower level kernel API stuff or like constrained embedded system stuff. So I think Rust, there is a niche use case for it. I would also kind of maybe even consider Go, even though I've never used Go, but Go might be a better alternative even. All right, let's see what that does. There are at least 12 reasons I don't like Rust. That's quite a few reasons. Okay, that now works with the empty case. Yeah, just remember there's a bunch of other fixes I think I need to go through on this. Oh, there's another bug. I shouldn't need to do that. Dookie up. Bias says, yo. How's it going? Do you define yourself as an influencer? I don't know. I think that's I don't know. I question if it's even a relevant question. I kind of consider the stuff I'm doing is just like marketing. Like if you start a business, if you start selling ice cream, how would you sell ice cream these days? Would you just hope that people buy your ice cream, or would you make like weird TikTok videos about ice cream? That's what you gotta do. Let me think. I got a bunch of things to think about. Ice cream might make sense. The ones at the supermarket have too much air shipped in. The good ones are too expensive. Yeah, they're and they've gone up quite a bit recently too. Robert, your Discord link on your YouTube profile does not work anymore. Where will I share my memes now? So for the Discord, I can't remember what the change was. I think it was the last character is a Z character on that Discord link, and if you delete the Z, that'll give you the actual link. It's like it's wrong on purpose, so that bots won't join. But technically, I don't really have. Moderating a Discord is a lot of work, and I don't really care to do that. So there's someone else started a Discord. So if you go to like the official Discord, which is like locked down, you can't post anything. There's a link to like, the unofficial one that someone started, another guy started a while ago, and there's some people posted some memes and stuff there, but. Actually, there hasn't been any activity there in a while. guess maybe it's maybe it's that my offset correcting code is not quite correct. Nice, that fixed it. You know what, for testing, I should just add something that'll make it easier to add new items. Your diagrams are pretty great. What software do you use? What do you mean what do you mean by diagrams? I make lots of diagrams. Make a lot of diagrams. I just use GIMP image editor when I need to edit stuff. And more recently, I actually have been using ChatGPT for stuff. I find it can be. There's a low rumbling. There's a truck or a train out there revving super loud. Yeah, it's I sometimes I'll use ChatGPT. That'll get me like 90% the way there, and then so often I'll need to like edit things, so it'll have like spelling errors and weird stuff. Yeah, it's just me distracting. Usually can't hear. I thought it might have been the train or something. There's like a train area around here. You hear them going in the winter, where they like park all the supplies and stuff. Oh, it is working, but it doesn't update. Okay. Yeah, for diagrams, ChatGPT is I think quite good. I can like for just asking for like templates and stuff as a starting point. So that's adding it. Why doesn't it work? It's adding the item, but I want it to like give me immediate feedback. Hello, Robert Elder Software. How's it going? Hack Matrix. Should build an infrasound microphone with a seismograph, like Ben Jordan, so we can hear the next one. Ben Jordan. I don't remember his name, but as soon as you said build an infrasound microphone, I'm pretty sure we're thinking of the same person. He's that guy who does all those crazy videos about sound. Yeah, the one about storing a PNG to a bird. Maybe I need the finalized frame. Just watched some incompetent cops arrest a paraplegic for kicking a door down. A paraplegic kicking down a door and running away? That's a pretty random comment. H1RA says, what's this? This is development of a terminal-based video game. So it's an infinite, procedurally generated universe where you wander around, you spam the M key to mine blocks of iron ore and other resources. I joke that you should put an infrasound microphone so we could hear the next one and get censored. Is the list work finished? No, I found some more bugs, but actually, let me test some stuff. Okay, good. I just added a thing so I can, instead of recompiling, I just added. I can just press a button to add a list item. Now that's wrong. So many edge case bugs. Fun game? Yeah, it is pretty fun. I saw your 3D client tweet. Yeah, I didn't write that. Someone else did, but I thought it's pretty interesting. Because that's the first time I've ever seen the world in a 3D format. It looks correct. I have a pretty good mental model of what the terrain looks like. Have you been living in the same terrain the past 182 days? I mean, like, has the game been rendering the same terrain for the past 182 days? Yeah, I haven't. I've made some slight changes to the generation algorithm, but it's mostly the same. You should do a rug pull meme coin. Yeah, I was thinking about maybe selling actual coins. I could make my own copper coins, sell them. Terminal block mining simulation coin. Each block mined is a coin. If you want, you can go on my Shopify store and you can buy a sponsored block type. That's basically like a blockchain, except it's not a chain and it's not a scam. Oh, nice. We got a super chat. Thank you very much to H1RA for the £10. That's the first super chat in a while. It's been pretty dead in the realm of super chats lately. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's a pun, since block mining is what minting new coins is. Yeah, that's I guess one drawback to this whole block mining game is there's a lot of confusion with like cryptocurrency scams. APX Edits says hello. Do you just do programming as your life work, or do you have a separate job? During the day, I've been working on mostly YouTube videos lately. And yeah, I guess it's been almost a year now since I worked on any consulting work. I mean, theoretically, that could come back any day, but I've kind of just come to the conclusion it's not. It was never super viable to begin with. Oh yeah, and I forgot the economy's all collapsing and stuff now too. Living the dream. Yep, trying to chase the dream. Guys, imagine he actually dominates the world. Yeah, I mean at this rate, if I keep getting super chats, then never know what's possible. Nice. That worked. It does what I want. Oh no, it's not good. Got a problem with line 420. Oh, maybe that's the opposite. Yeah, I got that backwards. That's what happens when I have two code branches that are almost identical. First super chat ever. Never donate. I think if I wouldn't know that you're in many ways like me, struggling with stable IT jobs. Yeah, I mean, I technically, I could go back to the chase the 9 to 5 grind. I don't know how many of my videos you've seen, but I mean, I'd prefer to try to do something that's I think is economically productive. Like people have, some people say, I should just give up on this and then go back to the 9 to 5. But if I was to do something like that up here, a 9 to 5 would be like go back to teaching at the college, at Conestoga College. And if you Google for Conestoga College, and they're going through all these hearings and stuff, and I don't know whether it's in Parliament or all these Canadian politicians are grilling them about the student diploma mill fiasco, where they're just bringing in 1 million immigrants and then charging them insane tuition money, and then they graduate and get a job at Tim Hortons. I could go back to contributing to that, but then again, if I make videos, even though some of them don't necessarily make a lot of revenue, they still get a lot of reach. And I mean, I can at least point to my how to make a CPU video. I've educated 15 million people on how to build CPUs. And when you compare, I think if I, how many years would I have to teach to educate 15 million students? Nice, no crashes. Oh, nice. James Goodrich is back. Thank you for the $10. Here's tuition for the CPU video. Oh, thank you. That's very generous. You've been a very dedicated supporter of the block mining simulation project. Startups are fun and remote. Yeah, startups can be fun. I've worked with some startups that were pretty awful. I don't know. I guess I've had enough of bad experiences with them that, part of it's because I pursued it as like an independent consultant. So that kind of, the problem is like venture capital funded companies, like the good ones are way more picky. So they never want to hire like an independent consultant person. And the ones that you don't really want to do work for are the ones that can't afford and attract the better talent. James Sarcote, he is indeed. Remote is not that good if you have to work in a team. Lots of miscommunication and quiet quitting with no accountability. Yeah, and people working 5 jobs at once. My experience so far. Yeah, I imagine it's even worse too. Like in a lot of my, in almost every place that I worked, English was a second language for much of the team. So when you add that on top of that kind of communication subtlety on top of everything else with remote, I could see that being pretty bad. Okay, that fixed a bunch of bugs. I'm supposed to work 5 jobs. I'm a terrible remote employee with 1. Yeah, during COVID, there was people that did that. They were making like $200,000 a year at like 3 different jobs. And I think there was some guy from India. He got famous or something. He had like 5 jobs. And I think he didn't even live in the country. Apparently, this is actually like a big thing. North Korea is doing this. They have like people from North Korea who, like they have a whole system. They have like it's basically, for them it's a big deal to be able to get into these places. They have like a whole process for have one person pretend to do the interview, and just some 80% of people always quiet quit. That's a lot. Just become the better talent. The better talent is not always appreciated. All right, that's working pretty good. Oh, it's something I didn't test. I haven't tested this with resizing. Right, no crashes. Look how great that dynamic terminal list is. It's just a fabulous terminal list. Better talent instead of an incentive, you'll just receive more work. Yeah, I find that's a common thing. If you're there's a phrase like, if you want to get something done, give it to someone who's busy, and that seems to be the way things actually end up operating. It's like whoever's the most effective employee will get all this work piled on them. Responsive terminal UI. Yep. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Just got here. Is it Temple OS 2? No, this will never be able to compete with Temple OS. Temple OS is called Temple for a reason. Let me think. Oh yeah, I also need, this doesn't work. There's some white space issues. You have a bunch of favorite Unix commands. What's your favorite function call in this game? Favorite function call? I don't know. It's a tough one. There's a lot of function calls. I don't know. I could give you like a random function call. Maybe like a signal handler or something. What is the temperature? The temperature is 1. Thank you for asking. Do you ever put any music when streaming? I think that lo-fi would be good. I never do because there's copyright. If I get flagged for copyright, then it gets like demonetized. Well, actually, I turned off monetization because when I turn on monetization, I have to like declare it doesn't contain anything bad or whatever. So it's just there's too many downsides to having music on. Even if I find like, you know, so-called copyright free, there's tons of like copyright free music that's actually copyrighted. And I liken salary jobs to communist. Oh, communism. There's copyright free. Oh yeah, same comment. This just I don't know. I don't think it adds that much. Grant S says, "Wow, it's been a long time since day 28. Crazy how fast everything happens." Yeah, it is. It's I feel like I just started. It's been half a year. Are there more than a few sprites on the screen? There's no sprites. It's all emoji characters. Made progress with the contract. I also watched all the videos. It's a small amount of work. It went from a quote of 5K to 4K. I made an email to the boss. He cut it again to 3.5K. Red Hawk, I recognize your username. It's familiar to me. Have we talked about consulting before? I forget. I lose track of the conversations. So I guess you're negotiating with someone, and they said they'd pay you 5K, but now they're down to 4K. and now they want to offer you 3.5K. Last stream, I believe, or maybe last one. Okay. Cost negotiations in contract. So I would say, in my experience, when you're doing like a fixed bid, so if you say like, I will complete XYZ objective if you give me this amount of money, before I started all the kind of like rhetoric was like, it's not smart to sell yourself by the hour, sell solutions. And so that, and all the conventional wisdom taught me you got to do like fixed bid contracts and stuff, which does make sense. I think especially if it's a bigger project. The issue that I always ran into was, especially for like anything a few $1,000s, generally like the company has no idea what they actually need to have done. So for example, like a predictable thing, like a very high likelihood situation is you say, this company have a front end website that displays some information, and the website talks to an API, and the API is implemented on a back end. There's some like server code that does calculations and talks, application layer stuff, talks to a database and whatever. And they come to you and they say, I want you to build this application and I'll give you $5,000. And it's just the front end. The back end is done, but we need you to finish the front end. So you're just going to be talking to this API, and here's the API spec. It's all done. It's completely finished. Just, we need a React developer. And so then you based on your understanding of what they say, you come up with a quote. You say, $5,000, and you kind of scope out the work, and then you start working on it. And the very first day, you call the API endpoint, and there's like internal server errors where it returns stuff, and the output is wrong, and you're like, that's weird. Why is this wrong? And then your boss tells you, oh, talk to this other developer. They implemented this. Then you talk to that other developer who implemented the backend, and they'll say, this is not done. This is not going to be done for like 2 months or something. Or there's like, I'm trying to get this finished, but I don't have the information that I need. And so now you're talking to, now you're supposed to come in to do the UI and the front end, but now you're like interacting with the backend person, trying to negotiate with them to get their backend work done so that you can finish the API. Now, or you can also you can mock the output. So you can build like test outputs and then call the mocking endpoint, but that's not the actual final data, because you have to figure out the spec for the mock data in anticipation of it being finished. And so now you're doing all this stuff that was not in the original description of what you're going to do for 5K. So yeah, on that trend, just make sure, be thinking when they say you're going to do X, Y, and Z, be aware that they might be the boss might be lying to you without even knowing it. YouTube is getting stupid with copyrights. Yeah, too much downside potential. How many subs have you gained since day one? I'm not sure. Actually, streaming, I lose subscribers from streaming. Last stream, I believe. Oh, yeah. After I got updated API docs for the hardware, I have to interrupt with it. It seems it's a tiny bit smaller, but generally no. Yeah, I found I always been told to, what you have to do is negotiate fixed bid stuff and say I will deliver solutions, and then you just work really hard and get things done, and then you collect your bonus for being so fast and efficient. But in my experience, companies don't even know what they want. unless it's like you're basically building this whole massive product, unless you have like total control of the product development in the entire like stack, it always just ended up boiling down to like being hourly work, because that was the only way. Like you would come in, start to do the work, and then find that the companies, like the boss would tell you, we need this done, and you come in and look at it and you're like, well, I can't do this until this other work is done. And even if I do the market or something, then there's other stuff that needs to be done besides what you told me. In that case, just say, no, can't do that until it's fixed. And then switch to another project. So would you recommend hour versus fixed sum? I would say I would only consider a fixed sum if like if you can pin down exactly what the requirements are. So based on what I just told you about, like expect the boss. So it depends. If the person you're talking about, the outputs you're going to develop, if that person is a software developer, like if they know things about how software is built, they might be able to articulate like more precise outcomes. But if they're like a business person, then they'll probably tell you like, a thing like I said, where they'll say, don't worry, the back end is finished. You just need to do the React stuff in the front end, and then you'll get in there and find out that that's not everything that needs to be done. Because like if there's bugs in the back end, they may have no idea what they're doing, and they'll blame you for it and stuff. So I would say it's anticipate like there could be scope creep like that, and if you do a fixed bid, you have to define what is the success criteria precisely enough so that you don't get into this like endless quagmire of you do the work and they're like, I'm not paying for this. I mean, I think it's not super likely that you get into like a lawsuit or something like that, but it's important to set expectations. So if you're working on it, like if you expect to be paid, but if there's still a lot of work done that needs to be done, because the person who specified the contract doesn't understand their own product, then they're going to be disappointed, and they'll have hard feelings about it, and then like maybe you just don't get more work out of the contract or something. But yeah, I found it, and also like sometimes too, depending on what you're working on, you may find some really nasty bug that you don't expect, and then you end up spending massive amounts of time, and maybe it's a bug in a third-party library, so it's not even your fault or something. So if you're on an hourly rate, then you're getting paid to fix that. And it also depends on how much you have to integrate with other people. So you may have if you have to help an intern figure out how to work with some of the scripts and stuff you wrote, you're getting paid to do that. Fix sum for the win. If you can define the outcomes well, I found in every case where I tried to, it ended up making more sense to do hourly. I think I'll stick to 4K in the project contract. Working from a template, having reviewed by a lawyer. Yeah, I mean 4K. That's pretty small as far as like consulting contracts and stuff go. Yeah, I mean, I think it's either way, it's probably a nice small contract to get you experience in doing what you're doing. And even if you have a bad time, you'll still learn a bit. Like, I think every contract you do, you will add new things to your list of stuff you want in the contract, and it'll be something you don't expect every time. Are you on Upwork? I'm not on Upwork. got a bunch of ones plus ones everywhere. Okay, don't give them space to maneuver you with deliverables and prices. Yeah, when I first started, I kind of thought that the most likely thing would be like, you know, someone tried to trick you and get free work. But in my experience, the most likely thing is that the person asking for the work will not understand how to define outcomes, and so they'll define an outcome that's ambiguous, and then throughout the project it'll be like it'll be unclear when success is achieved. Because I guess you can even think about it like, the worst thing is if you get involved in a quagmire and there's no clear end, and there's no like clear loss in terms of your time and effort. But even if you get into it and then you realize like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to like spend another 40 hours on this and not get paid for it. But if it's 40 hours only, then you can just put in those 40 hours and like cut your losses and move on. But if it's like 40 hours and then another 20 hours and then the client's still mad, and did offer to pay on a start milestone and final payment. Anyway, should get paid some amount. Yeah, if it's a reasonable sized company, like if they have, say, I don't know, if they have more than like 2 or 3 employees, $4K is like I think, a drop in the bucket. Like I think for a company hiring people, like I guess you could ask the question, like, of their total payroll in a month, what percentage is 4K? 4K might be a rounding error to them. And I know, like, from the perspective of most businesses, if they hire a contractor, they might think to themselves, like this, we're taking a chance. Like sometimes you hire people and they don't work out, and you waste like $10,000 on them, and then you're just happy to get rid of them. But if you get a good employee or a contractor, it's worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's another aspect is like sometimes like a reasonable sized company doesn't even care too much about this stuff. Well, I guess you said they were trying to beat you down to 3.5K. I think in cases that don't work out, I would say most mature companies, like the mature, well-run company that maybe would burn like 10K on a bad contractor, would just be like, okay, let's just gracefully go our own way, and we're going to let you go now, and they would just pay you what they owe you and move on. Because the amount of, like, if you lose your mind and start like suing them and filing employment claims against them and stuff, and like the amount of grief you can give them is greater than $10,000. But some companies are awful, and they treat their employees badly, and then the employees treat them badly, and they get into all sorts of quagmires. That's weird. That's a bug. There's no scroll bar. Good evening. How's it going? Game Dev Chat. All right, that's more correct. It basically works. There's a couple of things I remembered that I should fix. One is I have a bunch of like +1s. I assume that things have a width of 1 in a bunch of cases, but actually in the general case it can be, some characters can be greater than that if the padding is on the padding width can be greater than that. So I'm gonna I'll maybe make that generic. And then the other thing was I realized that I may want, in some cases inside the frame, I want the actual list area sometimes to be within the frame. So then a list doesn't always take up the entire frame. So I have to change some of the inner frames to be the list area width instead of the inner frame width. So that way I can have a, within the frame, I can have a title. It says like, crafting list. So that's another thing to add. All right, I think I may actually leave it there for tonight because I got to finish editing what I filmed today, what I recorded today for the next video. And that way I'm fresh and ready to record the next section tomorrow. All right, we'll leave things there for tonight, and then we'll be back tomorrow night for day 183. All right, have a good night, everyone.